Working on this wiring harness for the alternator and the starter. I got the wire run down here, tied on to a clamp here, tied on to the engine mount, and then it goes in the clamp, and it's tied on to the oil sump here. It runs through up underneath the cylinders along that oil sump, and then it's got another clamp here, and then this cable is the starter cable, and then the alternator harness goes across here. Another clamp over here onto the oil sump here, and then I've got it hooked in to the alternator there. So that much is done. Now I can put the starter up on there and get it mounted up onto the engine. That goes right here on this pad right here. We've got 3 studs coming out of the engine case, and then 1 bolt that goes up in there. That's a threaded hole there, and then a bolt goes up into that for the starter. There's a little ear on that starter right underneath where that rear stud goes on there, so we've got to I put the bolt on the first stud in front, tightened it up to hold it up there. Then I had to loosen it up to drop that starter down so that I could get the nut in there between the stud and that little ear that sticks out there. Now that rear one back here was the only one that really allowed, well, this one here, the stud, were the only ones that allowed to get on there with a socket. And I had to use a wobble socket on those, a universal socket. These two here I had to tighten up with a wrench. That's the way they were. So I'll go get a new lock washer for that. That's a number 5, I think. There we go. The starter and the alternator are both installed. Just need to safety wire the alternator. There's the starter. And there's the alternator with the belt. And that's good. Got a little bit of space here. This is where the new baffling went, and there's a little bit of space there between that and that adjustment arm. Now this bolt here, and then this bolt up here where the adjusting arm hooks into the engine crankcase, both are drilled and they need to be safety wired to keep those tight. So that's the only thing left to do on the alternator and the starter. Those are both installed now. So I guess the next thing to put on is the carburetor. It's starting to look like an engine now. I got the carburetor put on. Carburetor airbox, of course, I put onto the carburetor a few days ago. But the carburetor is all on. I still got to hook up the throttle cable and the mixture cable and stuff like that, but it's bolted up. Oh, starter, alternator, carburetor, starting to come together. Pretty soon it'll be a real airplane.